It's 8:30, so we will make a start. Right, well, welcome everybody to this extraordinary meeting of Holme Valley Parish Council, full council, in Brockholes Village Hall, which I think is the first time the Parish Council has come to Brockholes Village Hall. So a sort of Parish Council on tour, because I think our next full council is going to be a Haydedge band room. So again, so that we've got plenty of space to spread out. So thank you for coming to Brockholes. And I think for some people it's their first visit to Brockholes Village Hall. Not me, because I came to the ball court. But anyway, so thank you very much for coming out tonight. I appreciate it's a short item that's the main element of the meeting, but there's a few other bits and pieces to pick up around that. And see, we've got start with public question time, but there's no one here as members of the public. But I am going to take the opportunity to welcome our two new councillors. So we've got Councillor Mark Bustard, if I'm pronouncing that right. Is that right? Brilliant. Okay. And Councillor Andy Wilson, who've obviously both joined us after the May elections. So welcome to the Parish Council, both of you. And I hope you enjoy your time on the council. And obviously at the next full council meeting, that's when we'll be appointing people to committees. I know you've been either virtually or physically attending some of the committees, so hopefully you've got a sense of which committees you may wish to join. I'm also going to, in this public session, say that we've appointed a future clerk who's going to be, who some of you will have seen departing, because she was formally introduced to the staffing committee, and her name is Jen McIntosh. She'll be formally introduced to the full council on the 12th of July, so you'll all get to meet her then. But if you wonder who the lady was who walked out, and some of you came in, that's who it was. Which brings me to a sad but happy moment, just to say at the beginning of the meeting, so that we start the meeting in a nice positive light, which is just to say a big thank you to our current clerk, Liz, who leaves us at the end of this month, which is only 9 days away, and to thank her for all her hard work over the last 2 years that she's been with us, and she's guided us through lots of challenges, not least the spell of COVID, and the turbulent time of governance reviews and looking at all our processes, things like expressions of interest and the evolution of different committees, Honley Library, climate emergency. There's been lots of different things that have happened over the last 2 years, and Liz has worked in a very dedicated fashion, and I'd like to thank her for doing such a good job and serving the community in the way she has. So I'd just like to, on behalf of the council, just present her, obviously at a distance, a couple of things.
Oh dear.
This is not to try and embarrass her, but just to mark the occasion. So I will sort of pass that distance.
Thank you very much.
So there we are. There's some flowers, and in here, as you will find when you open it, there's a card, and there is a picture.
Of the council?
No, not of the council. You'll be relieved to know. You may wish to open it at the end of the meeting and see, but it's a picture of the Holme Valley. So I thought we can remind you of your role. So you can all thank you. Okay, so thank you very much for that, and we will move on to the formal business of the meeting. So, to accept apologies for absence, we've got quite a long list of absentees.
Councillor Bellamy, is his birthday, so his wife's also absent, and his son-in-law, Jason Brooke. Doug's car is on holiday. Paul Davis has family illness, gives his apologies. Darryl Gould is shielding. Charles Greaves has another meeting. Di Hall is isolating because her partner's going for a procedure. Judith Roberts, of course, is already announced that she's away for a while. And Joe Sweeney has given his apologies. So we have a few people who haven't given apologies. That's Paul Dixon, Donald Firth, and Ben Lockley.
Tom was on holiday in the Lake District.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Okay, well we'll accept the apologies that we've received, and we are quorate, so I should clarify, because we need to be 8 for this meeting, so we are just over. So moving on, thank you for that, Liz. To move on to item 03, which is to receive members' interest in items on the agenda and consider any written requests for new DPI dispensations. Anyone have any interest in things on the agenda? No. Okay, thank you. To receive any officers' interests in items on the agenda? No. Okay, thank you. Item 5, to consider whether any items on the agenda should be discussed in private. Nothing? No? Okay, thank you. And the next one is to approve the minutes of the previous council meeting, which were held on the 22nd of March 2021, numbered 2021-191 to 2021-216. So I'd like to propose those meeting minutes, please. Can I have a seconder? Yeah. Thanks, Councillor East. Okay, all those in favour, please. Okay, thank you. Okay, so moving on to the main reason for tonight's meeting, which is to approve the final account and accountability and governance annual return 2020 to 21. And I'll read out the content of the item, so we're all familiar with it. So the Parish Council must publish its final accounts and its accountability and governance annual return, or otherwise known as an AGAR, before the 1st of July 2021. That's why the extraordinary meeting has been called. The Parish Council must then allow electors a period of 30 working days to inspect the accounts, and these dates must include the first 10 working days in July. The process that the Parish Council must follow is laid out in the AGAR step-by-step guide. So just to clarify as well, last year there was because of COVID, there was an extension given for the AGAR process, but this year there hasn't been an extension. Obviously we made the decision because of the change of regulations to defer our annual meeting of the full council till our meeting on the 12th of July, which is obviously after the 1st of July, and that's why we've had to call this extraordinary meeting, because we wouldn't normally call an extraordinary meeting, we'd normally deal with the AGAR at the annual meeting. So the final accounts, accountability and governance annual return and supporting documentation have already been reviewed by the Finance and Management Standing Committee on the 14th of June 2021, and they're recommended to Council by that committee. Full Council needs to approve these documents, and the Chairman and Clerk have to sign the annual governance statement after this meeting. So there is a whole bundle of paperwork that goes with the AGAR, which our Deputy Clerk and Responsible Financial Officer has prepared. So there's 3 different elements to approve. So I will do each one in turn. And if anyone's got any queries or questions they want to ask of the RFO at that point, please put your hands up before we vote on each individual element. Okay. So the first one is to consider the approval of the final accounts 2020 to 21 processed by Realtas on 26th of May 2021. So do you want to say anything before? Any comments, Rich?
I suppose I need to say that Realtas were quite pleased with it. They only found one issue, and that was basically because I didn't understand how to set up the start of the previous year. Obviously I was new to the package, but otherwise they were very supportive of what we'd done. We were given some advice by the internal auditor about levels of our reserves, but that's more pertaining to what we need to do for next year rather than this current year. But in general, the internal auditor was supportive, and Realtas was supportive. So if anybody's got any questions about it, obviously there's a lot of paperwork and financial figures there, but if anybody does want to ask anything, then please feel free.
Is it worth saying that Finance and Management went through this with a fine-tooth comb last Monday, so it's...
Just as the chair of the Finance and Management Committee, I take on board what you've said, but I really think it's important that at this meeting people have that chance in the scrutiny of those accounts. So just because we were okay with it at Finance and Management, if you're not okay with it, please raise your concerns.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay, so can I propose that we approve the final accounts 2020 to 21 as of the 26th May 2021? Do you second that? Okay, all those in favour, please. Okay, thank you. The next item, to consider the approval of the Accountability and Governance Annual Return as presented herewith. So, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I do have to add to this. I did prepare a report for Liz, but she forgot to mention this bit at F&M. I just wanted to make a point about the one item that we failed on last year. I don't know whether you would have picked up on it. So this is why in the internal audit report on N we've got a no, and I've had to put no on column 4 of the annual governance statement. The reason that was a very, sort of very basic error on my part, really, because obviously that was my first time doing the AGAR, and when I uploaded the statements to the website, I just uploaded an electronic document. All the figures were correct, everything was correct with it, but what I needed to do was I needed to upload the document that had been signed by Councillor Bellamy as the chairman of the council. So that's why N has been failed. It's a very basic mistake. It's obviously very easily solvable. But I just wanted to point out that that's why we've got a no on the N on the internal audit report. Obviously, it's very easy correctable next year because it's very easy. Now that I've had 1 year and somebody's pointed it out, it's fairly obvious. But at the time, I just thought, well, just upload the figures and that's fine. But hey ho. So that's why that was failed. But otherwise, I think everything went well. The accounting statements, as far as I could tell, all balanced. I hope the F&M committee checked all of that. I think Liz said she checked it, didn't we? And yeah, as you see, we've come out at the end of it with rather a lot of reserves, so that is something we need to consider next year. But in terms of the actual paperwork for this year, I think it all went well, really.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions on those ones? Okay. In which case, can I propose that we approve the Accountability and Governance Annual Return as presented to us? Okay, all those in favour, please. Okay, unanimous again, thank you. Okay, the third item on this, to consider the approval of supporting documentation to the AGAR as presented herewith. So obviously, again, there's a number of different documents.
Yeah.
Anything to comment about?
Well, I'll just very briefly go through them. So with regard to the bank reconciliation, this doesn't really affect us because it only really affects parish council who use cheques where things are in transit and they're basically debited from one account but they haven't been received in another account. So it's basically for that reason. But because we don't use cheques, it's not really an issue for us. So our bank statement and our cash book statement nearly always match. So it's that's what's happened this year. So that's basically, it's kind of a no information form, but the external auditor does need it. The next one is the reconciliation between box 7 and box 8. And because we're a larger, smaller council, we have to do our accounts by what's called an income and expenditure process. That means that at the end of the financial year, we have to account for debtors and creditors, rent we get in advance, and things that we pay for in advance. So this is basically consolidating all of those. So you're probably aware we had some debts. The Gartside building owed us for electricity. We had donations for the toilets that we didn't get in March, that only turned up in April. We were owed some money by Viking, and we were owed money. We were owed £2 by Northern Power for allowing them to use one of our buildings for some of their equipment, and then we pay for insurance in advance. So that insurance money has to be accrued to this year, even though we paid for it last year. There's lots of calculations of those kind of stuff, and that's what this process is working out. as you can see, it all balanced out fine. You've just got to make sure that the balances equal out. You know, everything balances out, and that did. So, you know, that to me is good to go. I don't know whether anybody's got any questions about that. I know it's quite a complicated process. I was quite bemused with it when I did it the first time. Okay. And then this, the next one is this document we have to fill in when the figures vary. Is it 15%? I'm working off a very small document here. If the figures between last year and this year vary by 15%, I have to put a report. And the internal auditor said I had to be quite specific in terms of the numbers. Last year when I did it, I just did kind of a narrative thing, just said, you know, like a story of why we were overspent, but she said it had to be, you know, you had to really get all the figures out. So that's why I put these little tiny tables in accounting for the variances. In terms of as you can read, I mean, I'm not telling you anything you can't read. In terms of the income, obviously, the precept went up a little. We had that expensive support grant, and then certain things went down. Our interest went down. The donations on the toilets went down, and basically all that together, you know, meant that there was this reduction in our. Is it reduction? I can't even see it. It's that small. The change in our income, and obviously in terms of our staff costs. When Liz started, we obviously had the locum clerk for six months or even longer than 6 months. He wasn't paid out of salaries. He was paid from a different budget line. So it looks like we're spending a lot more than we were, but obviously, thank you. So effectively, when Liz started, we had one employee. Even though there was Liz and the locum clerk working together, it was effectively only counted as one employee. And then I joined in August, and then about a year later Michelle joined. So basically the reason for the changes are we started off with one employee, and by the end of this term we had 3 employees. So that's why we've gone up from 37,000 to 58,000. We're still less in staff costs, I think Liz found, than we were 10 years ago, aren't we? So
if you add in all the extra amount that was paid in other ways,
yes. And then the last bit is basically, you know, obviously due to COVID, we didn't spend half as much as we should have done, really. And that's basically the narrative of how we've ended up so under budget, and how we've ended up with a lot of money going into reserves. And I don't probably need to tell you about why that is, but as you can see, there were lots of things stopped in the summer, like the minibuses and the toilets, obviously for a period, and the benches. And so that's how we've ended up so far under budget on that. So these are all things that will go to the external auditor, and they tend to do it. And you know, they sometimes come back with other questions, asking for other information, but hopefully they won't. And then the final 2 documents are basically about the exercise of public rights, which, as you heard, it has to take place the first 10 working days of July, and it has to be for 30 working days. And so we're doing it from the Thursday the 1st of July to Wednesday the 11th of August, and then I've got sort of a week between now and then to upload everything to the website and get everything ready if so needed.
It has to be in the notice board as well.
Yes, it does, yes.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Rich, and thank you for preparing all the documents. It's obviously a very lengthy process, but I think you've done an excellent job, so thank you for that. So, unless anyone has any questions on those? Okay, we'll move to vote on this then. So, I'd like to propose that we approve the supporting documentation for the AGAR as presented. Okay, all those in favour, please? Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. If we can minute our thanks to the RFO for his hard work in preparing this, and for the positive feedback from the internal audit. obviously we hope to have something similar from the external audit. We will wait and see. Okay, thank you for that. So moving on to item 8. This is to consider a recommendation from the Finance and Management Committee at their meeting on the 14th of June, so just last week, that the management of home allotments be transferred into the remit of the Service Provision Committee. There is a present need to finance a rebuilding of a stone wall at the allotment, and at present Finance and Management has no budget for maintenance work. If this change is approved, the Council is also asked to consider that the cost of rebuilding the wall, £250 quoted by the maintenance contractor, be financed from the budget for maintenance of benches and shelters. Benches and shelters. And it should be noted that the cost of the repair has already increased while a delay occurred, and that's because the wall had collapsed more, not because the contractor has pushed his prices up. Just make that clear. It's because it's got further damage. It's a bit of wall that's collapsed. And we were determining whether the wall was a responsibility of the council, and this is up in Holme village where the allotments are. So it's likely that further delay would be even more costly because the wall will continue to fall down effectively. So this is a bit of an anomaly, to be honest, that we've got allotments being overseen by the Finance and Management Committee, but they have no budget with which to address any concerns with them. And in this instance, it's a holder of an allotment who brought it to the attention of the council that the wall was collapsing, probably because it got bumped by somebody. But so then there was a bit of investigation by the Clark team as to who that wall might belong to, whether we have responsibility for it. And the conclusion is we probably do, and therefore it would be wise, particularly as the wall is now falling apart more, to get it fixed before it becomes a more expensive problem. So in order to do that, this is the recommendation, as I've already outlined. So does anyone have any questions about this? Yeah.
Is there budget remaining in the maintenance of benches and shelters to pay for this?
So far.
Yeah. All right, go for it then.
Okay, so can I propose that we agree that the management of home allotments be transferred to the remit of the Service Provision Committee, and the budget is, the payment is made from the budget for maintenance of benches and shelters. Does someone second that? Okay, all those in favour? Okay, thank you very much. Right, that brings the meeting to a prompt conclusion. So thank you very much for coming out. Such a short meeting, but it's an important one in terms of improving our finances. So thank you, and see you soon.